forsaken wasteland known as Yena. A young Yautja named Dek faces exile. He carries no honor, no allies, only a burning instinct pulsing in his veins. Survive or die hunting. Welcome, Predator. Badlands awaits. The new generation.
Whoa! Man, the Predator Savage Lands is finally here. And no, I'm not exaggerating when I tell you this isn't just a movie. This is a savage, visceral, addictive experience that will make you feel the adrenaline of the hunt in every single scene. Imagine a planet forgotten by the gods, where the air cuts, the ground bleeds, and every noise you hear might be your last, ever. In that hellhole they call Yena, a young Yautja named Dek is thrown into exile by his own clan. No honor, no allies, just the raw survival instinct burning in his veins. Hunt to live or die trying. But what starts as a test for redemption quickly spirals into a legendary nightmare, because waiting for him there is Kalisk, a beast so immense and lethal that even the oldest, most seasoned hunters its name with genuine fear. And right in the middle of this war, Dek's fate will get intertwined with Tia, a Wayland-Yutani android who, against all logic, feels way more human than most actual humans. Directed by Dan Trachtenberg, the visionary behind Prey and 10 Cloverfield Lane, Predator Badlands promises to push this entire franchise to the breaking point. It's more brutal, more emotional, and features a direct connection to the alien universe. Oh yes. And get this, pay attention. On the Yautja ship, they reveal a trophy room displaying skulls from humans, dinosaurs, engineers, and even a harvester from Independence Day. This is an epic twist that could be the start of the most massive crossover in the history of science fiction, period. It all kicks off with the very motto that guides the Yautja. They are no one's prey, they are no one's friend, they are the predators of all. We drop right onto Yautja Prime, the homeworld of these supreme hunters, as a ship tears across the sky, and aboard it travels Quay. With the precision of a seasoned warrior, he uses a laser and a rope to traverse the mountainside. Reaching the far end, he removes his hood, taking in the landscape with a focused stare. He then steps inside a cave and mutters, "I feel you, brother." Are you hiding? He's searching for his sibling, Dek. Suddenly, Dek appears and the two engage in a fierce, brutal fight. Quay tells him he's still too young to fight, that he fights with blind fury. Dek counters that he fights like their father, but Quay fiercely corrects him. He is not like their father. The brawl continues with savage intensity. Finally, Quay manages to knock him down and throws him over the edge, into the abyss. Dek, hurt and exhausted, barely manages to cling to the edge and save himself. When he manages to climb back up, he screams at his brother, declaring that he's still alive. Quay looks at him with contempt, telling him he still has much to prove, that he still doesn't truly know who he is. Dek proudly asserts that he is a Yautja, but his brother coldly replies, "You are not yet." Quay approaches him, adjusts his helmet, and says he just saved his life. Quay warns him to be careful not to blow his own head off, then announces that the time has come to make the ancestral oath, the same vow their ancestors made to be accepted into the clan. He must choose a prey, hunt it, and bring it back, or never return at all. Dek chooses a destination known only as the Dead Planet. There, he will face the Kalisk beast, the supreme predator, a creature feared by both the Yautja and the humans of the Wayland-Yutani Corporation. Kalisk stands over 10 feet tall and possesses supernatural strength and abilities. Quay warns him that even their father fears this beast, but Dek is absolutely determined to hunt it down. Failure means death, Quay reminds him. Dek immediately swears he won't fail. Shortly after, Njor appears, an ancient, high-ranking Yautja and the father of both. He demands to know why Quay failed his mission. He was supposed to kill Dek, considered the weakest of the bloodline. Quay replies that his brother will bring back Kalisk's head as an offering to the clan, but his father bursts into a mocking laugh. He doesn't believe a word of it. His father tells him he should have killed him while he slept. Enraged, he catches Dek in a trap, and before leaving, Joer orders Quay to fulfill his duty and execute his own brother. Quay approaches Dek, looks him in the eye, and firmly tells him to be brave. Without hesitation, he cuts the trap his father had set. In that instant, Quay rebels against Nor to protect his brother, and the confrontation between father and son is brutal. The sound of metal and roars fills the air as Dek, feeling helpless, tries to hide in the shadows. Despite his efforts, Quay is ultimately defeated. Nor is absolutely relentless, sentencing that to spare the weak is the greatest sign of weakness. Right in front of Dek's horrified gaze, he beheads his own son. Quay's body crashes to the ground, while Njor walks away without a shred of remorse. The ship begins its launch sequence, and in a matter of seconds, it disappears into the skies of Yautja Prime. Dek watches, completely motionless, his heart filled with rage and pain. The ship transports him towards his fate, planet Yena, known as the Death Planet. The landing is violent. The ship slams through trees before grinding to a halt in the thick fog. Dek struggles to sit up, badly wounded, and silently swears he will bring home the Kalisk monster in the name of his fallen brother. After recovering his strength, he preps his gear and the hunt begins. However, he quickly realizes that Yena is no ordinary world. Strange creatures emerge from the ground. They resemble trees with living, writhing roots. Fearless, Dek aims his weapon and opens fire, but he soon understands they are stronger than they look. The creatures, like giant carnivorous plants, surround him and attack without mercy. Dek fights with everything he's got, using his wits to escape, and scrambles to the top of a rock, out of reach of his predators. He then heads toward a nearby river to wash the wounds those beasts inflicted on it. While doing so, he discovers some worms that explode on contact. He almost devours one by accident. He continues exploring the hostile terrain until he reaches a field of corn-like plants, covered in thorns that instantly detonate at the slightest sound. Just then, a gigantic bird soars over the area, dropping rocks and triggering a chain reaction of explosions. In the distance, Dek spots Tia, a Wayland-Yutani android, who, following a failed mission, has been left without half of her body. In a calm, metallic voice, she explains that the bird uses those thorns to put its prey to sleep before devouring them. She then proposes they team up to survive. Dek proudly replies that a Yautja hunts alone. Tia counters. They hunt alone, but they also die alone. They stare at each other in silence, in the middle of a world where life itself seems to be just another predator. Finally, one of the thorns hits Dek and wounds him. Dazed and out of strength, he decides in the last instant to trust Tia. He tosses her one of his tools, and before losing consciousness, lets her take over. Tia lunges with determination, confronts the bird, and manages to bring it down, saving the Yautja's life. When Dek wakes up, the android reveals the truth, that she is a synthetic sent by Wayland-Yutani because no human could survive even one day on this planet. She explains that many Yautja have come here to hunt the legendary Kalisk, but none have ever returned alive. Tia claims to have seen the creature and survived the encounter. She proposes an alliance, that he guide her to the monster's lair. In exchange, she will guide him to his quarry, and he can recover the legs she lost, which are currently located precisely in Kalisk's hideout. At first, Dek refuses. His Yautja pride forbids him from accepting help. However, he changes his mind when Tia coldly tells him that she won't be his companion. She will be his tool. Only then does he accept the alliance. During their journey, Tia tells him she has a sister named Tessa, also a synthetic, and that both of them are special. They possess a sensitivity that makes them different. Dek snaps back that sensitivity is simply a form of weakness. Tia stays silent for a moment, then confesses that her original mission was alongside Tessa until Kalisk tore them apart, and she hasn't seen her sister since. Meanwhile, at the Wayland-Yutani facilities, we see Tessa in bad shape. Engineers repair and reprogram her, assigning her a new mission. The company is unhappy with her performance. They warn her that another failure will mean her immediate deactivation. They inform her that a Yautja has taken Tia prisoner. With a cold gaze and a somber air, Tessa prepares for her mission. Back on Yena, Dek and Tia are hunting together. A hungry Dek tries to capture some prey when Bud appears, a small, agile, ape-like bipedal creature. Bud jumps ahead and snags the animal before Dek lunges and with a swift, calculated blow, asserts dominance, scaring off the intruder and claiming the kill for himself. Bud watches him, confused yet clearly impressed. However, their calm doesn't last long. A gigantic lunar insect erupts from the ground and snatches them both with its pincers. Dek struggles but can't break free. In a completely unexpected move, Bud leaps to help them, successfully distracting the monster. The insect grabs Bud in a fury, but Dek reacts fast. He slices a tree down with his weapon, scrambles to the top, and launches himself onto the creature, impaling it with his spear and killing it instantly. He saves the small Bud, earning its absolute respect. Far away, Tessa continues tracking them, moving through ruins and heavy fog, more powerful and darker than ever. That night, Dek, Tia, and Bud rest together by a campfire. In a ritualistic gesture, Bud marks Dek as a member of his clan. Tia translates the gesture, but Dek responds that he has no clan. "I had a brother," he says, "but my father killed him." Tia looks at him silently and replies that she still has something to look for, her sister, Tessa. Dek does his stretches, and little Bud copies him entirely, clumsily repeating his movements and gestures. His clumsy attempts to look like a hunter actually bring a touch of genuine humor to Tia, who for the first time lets out an almost human laugh. Meanwhile, Tessa successfully locates the Yautja ship. She quietly slips inside, analyzes the logs, and discovers Dek's armor, along with the remains of the previous fight. At dawn, Dek wakes up, fully determined. He tells Tia they need to continue their journey, but he intends to leave Bud behind. Tia reminds him that the little guy saved him from the lunar insect, but Dek, completely indifferent, replies that the danger is gone and he doesn't have time to look after anyone. In a cold tone, he clarifies that he's only bringing her because she's useful, because a Yautja hunts alone. During their travel, they reach a river. While Dek examines the terrain, Tia analyzes the water, detecting recent traces of the Kalisk. The monster drinks from here. She tries to use the moment to teach him a lesson. She tells him about wolves, explaining that they hunt in packs and always follow an alpha. Dek, full of pride, assumes the alpha is the one who kills the most. Tia calmly denies it. No, the alpha is the smartest. She says this pointedly, hoping he'll grasp the value of cooperation, but Dek simply ignores her. They finally reach Kalisk's lair, a gigantic cavern covered in black roots and the bones of ancient prey. Tia tells him that the monster wiped out almost every synthetic sent by Wayland-Yutani. There they find Tia's lost legs. She sets up a makeshift medical machine to reconnect them. As the process begins, she confesses to Dek that she activated her location beacon. The company's synthetics will be arriving soon, so she tells Dek she'll never forget him and that he needs to leave now. Dek, his pride still burning, replies that he won't forget her either. He promises to hunt Kalisk in honor of his brother, and also for her, ensuring she will be the first to witness his victory. But Tia reveals a detail that leaves him cold. Wayland-Yutani had sent her along with her sister Tessa and other synthetics to capture Kalisk. That means she's not alone, and more are coming soon. Dek is absolutely furious. He believes the whole thing was a trap, that Tia used him. His eyes fill with rage and pure distrust. He swears that no one will steal his trophy and that he, and only he, will wipe out everyone and claim the glory. Without listening further, he storms off, leaving Tia alone. Outside, he preps his weapons, activates explosives, and triggers a massive detonation to draw out the monster. The ground trembles. Out of the darkness emerges Kalisk, a colossal beast with a searing gaze. Dek attacks with ferocity and manages to wound it, but he quickly discovers that the injuries are regenerating right before his eyes. Kalisk moves with inhuman speed. It strikes him brutally and launches him several feet away, smashing him right into the cave where Tia was located. The impact destroys the repair machine, stopping her from fully reattaching her legs. Wounded and barely functional, Tia watches as Dek is about to be devoured. Without thinking, she grabs a weapon from the ground and fires again and again to distract Kalisk. The shots barely slow the creature down, but they give Dek a vital opening. With a roar of fury, the Yautja leaps and manages to sever the monster's head with one devastating strike. For an instant, Dek feels victorious. Kalisk's head rolls across the floor. However, a few seconds later, the monster's body begins to convulse. The flesh reassembles, the muscles regenerate, and the beast stands back up, wilder and stronger than ever. The real battle is just beginning. As the Kalisk prepares to strike the final blow, it sniffs him, and surprisingly, it stops. In that exact moment, Tessa appears. She freezes everyone with a single gesture. Later, we see her with Tia. Tessa tells her she was right. The Kalisk is a regenerative creature, a monster, and that all of humanity will be grateful. She also tells her that the corporation will recognize her service, especially for having captured the Yautja. Tia, however, understands the situation and doesn't agree. She knows the Yautja and tells Tessa he is badly wounded and deformed, that the best thing to do would be to take his weapons and set him free. But Tessa insists on extracting a sample. As she does this, the Yautja suffers unbearable pain. Tia demands that she leave him alone, asserting that he is not a threat and that during their journey, he actually cared for her. Furthermore, Tia says she figured out that Tessa only came here to rescue her, Tessa, and replies that she acted purely to fulfill her mission, not out of any affection for her, and that she doesn't consider Tia important at all. She reminds her that the time they faced the Kalisk and Tia defended her, their mission failed because of her weakness. She says Tia almost committed the same mistake that Dek's brother did. Then, she makes her philosophy crystal clear. The weak must be eliminated. Finally, she stresses to Tia that she is damaged, that she no longer functions as she should. Tessa continues, saying that their mother granted them feelings not so that synthetics would become human, but to better understand and manipulate the creatures they study. That's why she plans to use Dek as part of the experiment. Just as she's about to continue the procedure, she receives a message from Mother, their creator, and immediately leaves. At that moment, a staff member arrives at the lab and overhears Tia speaking in the Yautja language. Since he doesn't understand the tongue, Tia uses this chance to trick him and secretly communicate with Dek. He understands that Tia is on his side, and that her sister Tessa is not, so they decide to form an alliance again. Dek asks her to lie to the staff member, telling him that the object in his hands, which is actually just a simple children's game, is an important map. He tells her to convince the synthetic to look inside, and when he does, the artifact explodes. Tia laughs, commenting that she truly thought it was a children's toy, to which Dek replies, "It is, but for Yautja children." And just like that, he manages to escape the facility by launching himself down an abyss, making the Wayland-Yutani agents believe he is dead. Badly injured, Dek manages to reach his brother Quay's ship. Upon entering, he finds that all of his weapons have been taken, but he still has a device capable of accelerating his regeneration. With effort, he manages to heal the most serious wounds. While exploring the remnants of the ship, Dek finds his brother's mask. He takes it in his hands and says with a tone of respect, "My brother saved me," proving he was a true wolf who protected his pack. With no weapons or gear, but with a deep knowledge of the wild species and creatures of planet Yena, he decides to forge his own arsenal. His plan is clear: capture every kind of being, utilize their parts, and build new tools and a suit worthy of a hunter. Over the following days, Dek collects materials, tissues, and fragments from exotic creatures, eventually forging his own set of weapons and a completely new armor. When he is finally ready, he crosses paths with Bud and discovers that Bud is the daughter of the Kalisk. Both of them, aware of their bond and what they've lost, decide to team up again as a pack. Together, they embark on a dangerous mission. rescue Tia and Bud's mother, who are now prisoners of the Wayland-Yutani Corporation. The company plans to use the Kalisk as an experimental subject to study its regeneration capability. Meanwhile, Tessa establishes communication with Mother, her creator. Mother asks about Dek, and Tessa replies that the Yautja was a defective specimen and that he is now dead. Mother indicates that the Yautja no longer poses a threat and that the company approves of her mission performance. In parallel, Dek and Bud advance as an unstoppable force, facing and eliminating the Wayland-Yutani synthetics with savage fury. Before setting off, Dek had sent Tia's lower limbs ahead with a special program, a deadly trap designed to destroy anyone who tried to impede his mission to find Tia. Or rather, exactly what is left of her. Just as Tia's legs are about to reach their destination and fulfill their programming, an additional group of synthetics bursts into the area. However, the limbs, controlled with lethal precision, engage them with flawless coordination. In the middle of the chaos, Tia manages to reconnect with her legs, fully reassembling her body and her strength. As she does this, she realizes Dek came back for her. He now firmly believes that they are part of the same pack, loyal wolves who must never be separated and who must always protect each other. Tia, still confused, tells him they need to leave immediately, but Dek reveals that his mission isn't over. Now they must rescue the Kalisk. Right then, he confesses that Bud is actually the daughter of the Kalisk. Tia is shocked, but upon understanding, she agrees to join the plan. They are no longer simple allies. They are a team, a family united by instinct and survival. Dek activates the red alert, unleashing chaos across the entire base. He then sits down quietly, waiting for the synthetics to come to him. When they do, he confronts them using the tools he personally forged from the creatures of planet Yena. Savage, deadly hybrid weapons. One after another, the enemies fall to his strength and ingenuity. But the battle isn't over. Tessa appears, piloting a gigantic combat mech, armed with the fiercest and most devastating weapons created by Wayland-Yutani. Fearlessly, Dek stands tall before her, determined to fight until the end. Meanwhile, Tia infiltrates the lab where the Kalisk is being held captive. Just as a synthetic spots her, Tia manages to neutralize it with a precise strike, rendering it inactive. She then approaches the container to free the Kalisk, determined to fulfill her part of the plan. Just as Dek is about to be utterly destroyed by Tessa, an earth-shattering roar echoes in the distance. The Kalisk bursts onto the scene with unbelievable fury, pouncing on Tessa to engage her in a savage battle. While the two colossal forces clash, Dek seizes the moment to climb onto the mech and disconnect the power cables, shutting down its systems one by one until it collapses. The fight reaches its climax when the Kalisk manages to subdue Tessa and, in a sudden, instinctive act, devours her whole. Exhausted, the creature embraces its offspring, Bud, with unexpected tenderness. Dek slowly approaches and places his forehead against the Kalisk's in a gesture of respect and gratitude. However, a second later, the beast's body begins to glow from the inside out and explodes into 1,000 fragments that scatter everywhere. Bud is devastated, watching his mother die before his eyes, reduced to silent tears among the smoking wreckage of the battle. But then, the truth comes out. Tessa is still alive. From inside the monster, she had activated her cryogenic weapon, a lethal fusion of ice and destructive energy that completely annihilated the Kalisk from the inside. Covered in frost, her eyes blazing with rage, Tessa emerges from the wreckage. Her face, marked by pride and resentment, reflects both hate and pain. Without hesitation, she raises her weapon and aims it directly at Tia. Traitor! She should never have trusted her. That Tia was always a defective machine, incapable of understanding what loyalty truly means. But before Tessa can fire, Dek appears behind her and with lethal precision stabs her with all his strength to stop her from hurting Tia. The blow tears through her body and Tessa drops to her knees, trying to get back up as her eyes fill with disbelief. However, before she can utter a single word, little Bud, driven by fury and pain, pounces on her in a final act of vengeance and brutally crushes her head, putting an end to everything. Silence grips the battlefield. All that can be heard is the crackling fire amongst the metallic wreckage. Tia, exhausted and breathless, slowly approaches Dek, observing him with a mix of respect and relief. With a slight smile, she tells him he acted like a true Yautja. Dek remains silent for a moment, his gaze lost on the horizon, then replies calmly, "Not yet." For this very reason, Dek travels to planet Yautja Prime to present himself before his father and the rest of the clan. His purpose is to reclaim his armor and be officially accepted as one of them. As a symbol of his victory, he carries a trophy, Tessa's skull. However, upon seeing him arrive, his father greets him with utter contempt. He then mocks him, utterly convinced his son is weak and unworthy of belonging to the clan. Jar orders 2 of his warriors to eliminate him immediately. But Dek, with a fierce calm and renewed strength, proves he is no longer the insecure youth he once was. In a matter of seconds, he defeats both opponents with a savage skill that surprises even his own father. Jor, irritated by the humiliation, decides to face him personally. The fight is brutal. In the middle of the combat, the old leader throws a taunt. He says maybe, after all, the wrong son managed to survive. Dek fights with all his might, but his father constantly cloaks, using the invisibility device, making him almost impossible to hit. Then, remembering an old battle, Dek uses his environment to his advantage. He kicks up dust and sand with his movements until his father's invisible silhouette is betrayed by the particles. Cunningly, he uses the exact same trap Njor once used against Quay, his brother. Dek manages to immobilize him, traps him, and finally stabs him, ending the fight with the very technique that once marked him as unworthy. In that exact instant, a huge Kalisk emerges from the shadows and devours Njor's head, putting a final end to the old clan leader. Dek, without hesitation, approaches his father's fallen body and removes the armor, including the invisibility device. Now, the young hunter finally becomes the new leader of the Yautja clan. By his side stand his 2 inseparable companions, Tia and Bud, who has now grown into an imposing creature, truly worthy of his lineage. Everything seems to be over. But suddenly, the silence is shattered. All the Yautja raise their weapons skyward. A new threat has arrived. Before them appears a majestic and terrifying figure. It is Dek's mother, accompanied by her entire clan. The battle is far from over, and the true destiny of the new leader is only just beginning. This is where the movie concludes. If you liked it, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe, and ring the bell for more stories just like this one. Until the next hunt, my fellow Yautja friends,